كما أرسلنا فيكم رسولا منكم يتلو عليكم آياتنا ويزكيكم ويعلمكم الكتاب والحكمة ويعلمكم ما لم تكونوا تعلمون.
We are here to learn Arabic. And before we learn the material itself, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about 3 kinds of Arabic. There are 3 kinds of Arabic. Okay, you're not writing this down, just listen, okay? There's 3 kinds of Arabic. And the way to make that simple for you guys is there is street Arabic.
Street slang.
Yes. There's Fus'ha. You can go Fus'ha. We're not going to write it in Arabic yet, even though I can write it in Arabic. I'm really good at writing in Arabic. Fus'ha, like that. Okay. And then there is
Ancient?
No, language of the ancient Arabs. And that's called lisan al-Arab.
Lisan al-Arab.
Okay. So there's 3. There's street Arabic, there's Fus'ha, and there's lisan al-Arab. And I want you to know the difference between them. I'll explain it, and I'm going to ask you to explain it to me. And then I'm going to ask you guys without looking on the screen, because I'm going to erase it. And don't type this up, or don't take notes or screenshots or pictures. None of that. Then you're going to try to answer it for me too, okay? So you guys are both going to try to do that. So street Arabic. Street Arabic means that there are different neighborhoods in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so in America, for example, there are neighborhoods in New York City and different parts of New York. And there are neighborhoods in New Jersey, and there are neighborhoods in, Virginia, and there are neighborhoods in Texas, and neighborhoods in Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, etc. And when you go to certain neighborhoods, you hear a different kind of English. Like it sounds a little bit different, right? So if you go to some places in the United States, people say, "Can I get some water?" Water. And other places they'll say, "Can I get water?" Water. And other places in the world, you say water. Okay? So depends on where you are, water and water changes.
Yeah.
Right? So the same thing, when I came to Texas, I couldn't understand what people were saying at first. Because I was used to New York English, right? So that's street English. It's informal English, and it's different in different countries. It's different in different cities. It can even be different in different neighborhoods, right? So that's street Arabic. That's not the Arabic I'm going to teach you. Sorry. But if you wanted to learn that, it would be really helpful if you were a tourist, which you don't have to worry about for a while now, right? So, but if you were a tourist, if you're going to Egypt, you should learn Egyptian Arabic that they use in the street in Egypt. If you wanted to learn, if you wanted to go to Morocco, you should probably learn Moroccan street Arabic, informal. The big word for it is colloquial Arabic, but I don't care to say that for you. You could just say street Arabic. Okay. So I'm a student of Arabic, but I'm also beginner student of Spanish, and a very beginner student of German, for example, right? Other languages. And in Spanish, Mexican Spanish is completely different from the Spanish in Spain, which is totally different, very different. Even though the way they pronounce certain foods or talk about certain foods is different in Ecuador, even if it's the same food, and it's this different word for it in Colombia and a different word for it in Mexico. So if a Mexican person that speaks Mexican Spanish goes to like a Colombian restaurant and orders that food, or the workers come, they won't understand sometimes. They'll get the wrong thing because their Arabic is so different. The same way street Arabic is very different in different places. Right? Again, that's not what we're working on. That's the first kind, right? What's the second kind you see? Fus'ha. Fus'ha. Say Fus'ha with like your throat hurting. Fus'ha.
Fus'ha.
Yeah, good. And the ha is like you ate a mint and you go
Oh, like ha.
Yeah, Fus'ha.
Fus'ha.
That's not a mint.
Fus'ha.
Yes.
Fus'ha.
Yes. What you did, Fus'ha, is more like you had barbecue and you're like, not barbecue, mint. Fus'ha.
Fus'ha. Fus'ha.
Yes, Fus'ha. Good.
There you go.
Fus'ha is Arabic that is proper. right? So it's the Arabic you'll find in newspapers. It's the Arabic you'll find on Al Jazeera News or something like that. It's Arabic you'll find in these books that I have behind me. Most of these books are in Arabic, and that's in Fus'ha Arabic. So it's properly written Arabic, okay? Or properly spoken Arabic. And people think that if you know Fus'ha, you know the language of the Quran. But that's not true. That's important. That isn't true. Why? Because Fus'ha is, I want you to think of it this way. Let me see if I can draw on here. Okay, so imagine this whole box is, or this box is Arabic, right? Fus'ha Arabic is a way smaller part of that. So the language of the Quran is the orange thing, and Fus'ha Arabic is the blue thing.
So it's only a small portion.
It's a small portion. So if somebody says they know Fus'ha Arabic, therefore they know the language of the Quran. They know some things about the language of the Quran, but there's a lot they don't know, right?
Yeah.
So Fus'ha is really good. I mean, when you learn Fus'ha, you can speak well. When you learn Fus'ha, you can write well. You can understand well. You sound educated in Arabic. You can impress people with your Arabic if you know what? Fus'ha, right? And it has rules and grammar and things like that, right? But when it comes to the language of the Arabs, which is the third category, right? Let me go back to what I was writing before. I said there's street Arabic, there's Fus'ha Arabic, and there's what? Language of the ancient Arabs. Now, this is a big language of the ancient Arabs. You know why I'm saying that? Because this is how they used to speak thousands of years ago, or hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Okay.
Think of it this way. If in school, have you had to read Shakespeare yet?
No.
Okay.
That's in high school.
Alhamdulillah. When you do, you're going to find it difficult because he speaks in ways that we don't speak anymore, right? His English seems very different, okay? It even seems very advanced. Well, the thing is, the older version of the language, of any language, is way more advanced. And it kind of it shrinks and waters down and gets simpler as time goes on. Okay? So the ancient languages used to be way more words, way more ways of saying things, way more complicated, and way more beautiful also. And then as time went by, they started becoming easier and easier and lesser and lesser and lesser. That's what happened to Arabic. So Fus'ha is great, it's proper, but it's only a small part of what is actually the language of the Arabs. The Quran is speaking in the language of the ancient Arabs. Okay? So of course it has Fus'ha in it because Fus'ha is a part of that language.
Yeah.
But we don't want to start with Fus'ha and stay at Fus'ha. We need to understand the language of the ancient Arabs. So what's another way of thinking about this difference? This is how good Arabic is spoken nowadays, Fus'ha. Or this is how good Arabic is written or read nowadays. This is how good Arabic used to be, 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, right? So, and there's been a difference. Because the Quran was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ a millennium and a half ago, like 1,400 plus years ago, right? That's why we have to know this language so we know exactly how they used to talk back then, because the Quran was talking to them at that time, right? Yeah. So if we only learn this one, then we'd get confused about what the Quran is saying.